Hi again. Welcome to the continuation of the lectures in civil procedure. Okay, our topic for today is petition for relief from judgment under Rule 38. Okay, so you must remember that a petition for relief from judgment is a post-judgment remedy. When I say post-judgment remedy, post-finality of judgment remedy, it is a remedy after the decision has already become final and executory. You must remember that when a judgment is issued, you have 15 days within which to file either an appeal or a motion for new trial or a motion for reconsideration. After the said 15-day period, the decision becomes final and executory. Okay. When we say final and executory, it means that the judgment becomes immutable, becomes cast in stone. No matter how erroneous or wrong the judgment may be, the court no longer has the power to alter it. Okay. Now, are there remedies after the judgment already became final and executory? The answer is there is. One of the remedies is a petition for relief from judgment under Rule 38. Okay. Now, Rule 38, Section 1 states that uh, petition for relief from judgment, order, or other proceedings may be availed of if the grounds of fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence exist. He may file the same in the same court and in the same case, praying that the judgment, order, or proceeding be set aside. Okay, so you file the petition for relief from judgment in the same court that rendered the judgment that has already become final and executory. So what are the grounds? The grounds are pain. These are grounds which are extrinsic to the judgment itself. You must remember that you're not in a petition for relief from judgment. You're not attacking or challenging the correctness of the judgment itself. Okay? Because when the judgment becomes final, it becomes immutable. But you're praying for the court that the effect of the judgment should not be applied to you because the judgment was arrived upon through fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence. You can also avail of a petition for relief from a denial of the appeal. So when your appeal is denied due course, you can file a petition for relief from judgment through the same grounds: pain, fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence prevented you from taking an appeal. Okay. Now, what is the time for the filing of a petition for relief from judgment? Okay, a petition for relief from judgment has a double period. It must be filed within 60 days after the petitioner learns of the judgment, final order, or other proceeding. And that 60 days must be within the 6-month period after the judgment or final order was entered. So those two periods must be satisfied. So first, you must determine the 6-month period from date of entry. After a decision has already become final, okay, it will be entered in the book of judgment. And that will be the date of finality of the decision. Now you count 6 months from date of entry. Okay. Within that 6-month period, okay, the petitioner learns of the judgment, you count 60 days, okay, from the date when the petitioner learns or finds out about the judgment. That 60 days must be within the 6-month period from date of entry. Okay. What if the 60-day period fell outside of the 6 months from date of entry? You can no longer file a petition for relief from judgment. What if um, the date of receipt of the petitioner was, for example, there are only 10 days remaining of the 6-month period? Okay, the petitioner must then file the petition for relief within the remaining 10 days, because the filing of the petition for relief must be within 6 months from date of entry of the judgment. Okay? And the date of receipt of the petitioner, okay, and the 6 months period must coincide, meaning there is a double period that is required to be satisfied when filing a petition for relief from judgment. Also, there is a need to submit affidavits showing fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence, and the facts constituting the petitioner's good and substantial cause of action or defense. So it is not only the pain that is needed to be proved, but you must also have a good and substantial cause of action or defense. Now, if the court finds the petition to be sufficient in form and substance, the court will require the adverse party to file an answer within 15 days from receipt of the order, granting due course to the petition for relief from judgment. Again, a petition for relief from judgment is a post-finality remedy. Okay, only extrinsic fraud may be used as a ground for the petition. It does not concern with the judgment itself, but the manner by which the judgment was obtained. Must be accompanied by the affidavit showing fraud and the affidavit showing good and substantial cause of action or defense. Again, we must remember, it is very important to remember the period. It must be within 60 days from knowledge of the judgment, order, or proceeding, and within 6 months from the entry of the judgment, final order, or proceeding. Okay, these periods are absolutely fixed, inextendable, and uninterrupted. We have the case of Francisco versus Uno. So this is a case for a conveyance of a parcel of land. Petitioners failed to appear at the pre-trial, and he was declared in default, and evidence was presented ex parte. So the judge rendered judgment, finding the evidence insufficient to sustain the cause of action, and dismissed the case. The respondent filed a motion for new trial or reconsideration, alleging that the insufficiency of the evidence was due to the fault of counsel. Respondent judge denied the same for having been filed out of time. Now, private respondent filed to another counsel a petition for relief. Okay, so the Supreme Court said the remedy allowed by this rule is an act of grace because it is designed to give the aggrieved party another last chance. Being in the possession of one who begs, such party's privilege is not to impose conditions, haggle, or dilly-dally, but to grab what is offered to him. A party must file a timely motion for new trial, cannot file a petition for relief after his motion has been denied. These two remedies are exclusive of each other. It is only in appropriate cases where a party agreed by a judgment has not been able to file a motion for a new trial that a petition for relief can be filed. Respondent judge acted beyond his jurisdiction in taking cognizance of the petition for relief. You must remember that a motion for a new trial and a petition for relief from judgment has exactly identical grounds, which is fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence. If you have already availed of a motion for a new trial and it was denied, you cannot, after the judgment has already attained finality, seek a petition for relief from judgment, invoking the grounds that you previously invoked when you filed your motion for a new trial. So you must remember that these remedies, okay, cannot be filed successively. Okay, they are exclusive of each other. Availment of one excludes the other. Madarang versus Morales. So in this case, Bartolome obtained a loan from Morales. Bartolome mortgaged a property to Morales. For failure to pay the loan, Morales filed a complaint for judicial foreclosure against Madarang. Now, the trial court ruled in favor of Morales. The defendants filed their motion for reconsideration of the decision. The trial court denied the MR. The defendants filed a notice of appeal. The trial court denied due course to the notice of appeal for having been filed out of time. Now, the defendants filed a petition for relief from judgment, blaming their 80-year-old lawyer who failed to file the notice of appeal within the prescribed period. The trial court denied the petition for relief from judgment. Now, the issue is whether the failure of petitioner's former counsel to file the notice of appeal within the reglementary period constitutes excusable negligence. The Supreme Court said the trial court erred in counting the 60-day period to file a petition for relief from the date of the finality of the trial court's decision. The 60-day period must be counted after the petitioner learns of the judgment or final order. The period counted from the finality of the judgment is the 6-month period. The double period required is jurisdictional and should be strictly complied with. A petition for relief from judgment filed beyond the reglementary period is dismissed outright. This is because petitions for relief from judgment is an exception to the public policy of immutability of final judgment. Strict compliance with these periods is required because provisions for a petition for relief from judgment is a final act of liberality on the part of the state, which remedy cannot be allowed to erode any further the fundamental principle that a judgment or proceeding attains finality should not be open. The law gives an exception or last chance of a timely petition for relief within the reglementary period within 60 days from knowledge and 6 months from entry. But such grace period must be taken as absolutely fixed, inextendable, never interrupted, and cannot be subjected to any condition or contingency. Since petitioner's counsel received a copy of the decision on January 29, 2010, the period to appeal shall be counted from that date. Thus, the decision became final 15 days after January 13, 29. Petitioner set 6 months from February 13 or until August 12 to file a petition for relief from judgment. Okay? So you must remember the double period. It is mandatory and jurisdiction. Okay, so 6 months from date of entry. The 60 days from learning of the judgment must be within that 6-month period. Okay, we now go to the case of Alaban versus CA. Okay. Alaban versus CA tells us a motion for new trial or reconsideration and a petition for relief from judgment are remedies available only to parties in the proceedings where the assailed judgment is rendered. A person who was never a party to the case or even summoned to appear therein cannot avail of a petition for relief from judgment. So the uh, lesson that we can learn from the case of Alaban versus CA is that if you're not a party to the case, you cannot file a petition for relief from judgment. It is a remedy which is exclusively available only to parties in the proceedings. However, in this case, okay, this case is a probate proceeding. It is the publication of such notice that brings in the whole world as a party in the case and vests the court with jurisdiction to hear and decide it. Even though the petitioners were not mentioned in the petition for probate, they eventually became parties as a consequence of the publication of the notice of hearing. Remember that probate proceedings are proceedings in rem requiring publication. And when it publishes the petition, it brings in the whole world as a party to the proceeding. Now, what is the effect of the grant or denial of a petition for relief from judgment? At any rate, preliminary injunction pending proceedings may be availed of in a petition for relief from judgment. Okay, the court may grant preliminary injunction necessary for the preservation of the rights of the parties upon the filing by the petitioner of a bond in favor of the adverse party, condition that if the petition is dismissed or the petitioner fails on the trial of the case on the merits, he will pay the adverse party all the damages that may be awarded to him by reason of the issuance of the injunction. Remember that when you file a petition for relief from judgment, the judgment is already final, entitling the winning party to execution as a matter of right. Now, when you file a petition for relief, and it is given due course by the court, the petitioner can also apply for the issuance of a preliminary injunction to prevent execution of judgment, provided that the petitioner files a bond to answer for all the damages that may be caused to the winning party by reason of the injunction. Now, what are the proceedings after the answer is filed? So after the filing of the answer, the court shall hear the petition. If after hearing, it finds that the allegations are true, the petition are not true. The petition shall be dismissed. But if it finds the allegations to be true, it shall set aside the judgment or final order for other proceeding complained upon. Thereafter, the case shall stand as if the judgment, final order have never been rendered or taken. The court shall then proceed to hear and determine the case as if a timely motion for a new trial or reconsideration was granted. Okay. Now, what is the procedure where the denial of an appeal is set aside? When the denial of an appeal is set aside, the lower court shall give due course to the appeal and shall elevate the records of the appeal to the appellate courts. Okay. If a writ of execution was already issued, the petitioner may include in it a prayer for the issuance of a TRO or a preliminary injunction to enjoin execution. Okay? Now we go to the summary of petitions for relief from judgment. Okay. Instances when a petition for relief from judgment may be availed of. It may be availed of to set aside a judgment, order, entirely disposing of the case, or other proceeding. It may also be availed of in case there is a denial of the appeal, meaning a denial for an appeal to be given due course. Okay, what are the grounds? Fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable neglect. Where do you file a petition for relief? It is filed in the trial court which rendered the judgment, order, or denied the appeal. What is the time for filing? It is 60 days from receipt of the judgment, order, or denial of the appeal, which must be within 6 months from entry of the judgment or order. Now, what are the requirements for a petition for relief from judgment? You must attach to it an affidavit showing the fraud, accident, excusable neglect, and an affidavit showing good and substantial cause of action or defense. A party who has availed previously of a motion for new trial cannot subsequently avail of a petition for relief from judgment. These remedies cannot be availed of successively, but they are exclusive of each other. If a petition for relief from judgment is granted, the effect is the same as if a motion for new trial or reconsideration is filed, or that the appeal will be given to us. So that's it for Rule 38. Thank you for listening.